That's twisted. That's something we're supposed to break. So
if it is, DNA also breaks like that?
sometimes does. In a genetic disorder, it probably would. So it's in the sequence of A, C, G, T, which are the nucleobases, and C always pairs with A always pairs with T. So A, T, C, G. So as you can see, blue always pairs with yellow, no matter what. Red always pairs with green. So how small is DNA really? So DNA, let's zoom in. First we'll start with something we can see like hair. This is 0.1 millimeters, so we've zoomed in 50 times to see this. So then here's a cell. We've zoomed in about 1,000 times to see that. So a cell is about 0.01 millimeters to 0.1 millimeter. The cells vary in size. So this is a chromosome. And by the way, that's the nucleus. And inside the nucleus is a set of 46 chromosomes like that. And that makes the genome. This is what they look like together. So this is one of the chromosomes. It's about 100 nanometers, 100 billionths of a meter. And we've magnified 50,000 times to see this.
50,000 of what? With respect to that one? No, 50,000 of what?
50,000 times magnified. So about 1,000 times more than that. So this is an artist drawing, not my drawing. I'm not good at art of DNA. So you can see the nucleobase pairs. You can see the double helix or twisted ladder shape. And DNA is also called a supercoil because it's a coil, coiled even more into a supercoil. That's what they call it. So this is, actually it's an X-ray crystallograph. You could call it a picture. It's called Picture 51. It's by Rosalind Franklin, and it was the first picture of chromosomal DNA. Actually, Rosalind Franklin was going to receive a Nobel Prize, but she died before she could, so they couldn't give her one. So this is DNA seen through a microscope for the very first time. This is 2.5 nanometers, very small. And this is magnified 200,000 times to show the DNA. This is a DNA strand stretched between two pillars, and this is the DNA. You can actually see the ridges in the DNA, like the ridges. The ridges like this. They're like that. So you can see some cells with this microscope. It only magnifies 900 times, so unfortunately you can't see any DNA. But you can see a cell. I looked through before, you can see a cell. So why do we need to study DNA? It's DNA, we could have left it alone, but we studied it. Why? Because there's many uses for DNA. You can study genetic disorders. I mentioned it up here. Genetic disorders happen when part of your DNA gets broken or if it gets damaged. Something happens to it. Let's say that happens. Then your cells will make the wrong protein. And then you could get cancer, or it could disable your white blood cells. And then if it disables your white blood cells, you could die from like something that a healthy body could fight on in a day, like a cold or something. It also helps in solving crime, in forensics. So let's say someone murdered someone else. So that person who murdered, he or she would definitely leave behind some kind of DNA, something that had DNA on it. So then a forensic scientist could decode that DNA and sequence it, and then they could match that DNA to the person who committed the crime. Because everyone has different DNA. No two people's DNA is the same, unless they clone someone. But cloning is when you make a physical copy. We haven't cloned yet. And since all our DNA...
Did they clone for goat or...?
Yeah, they cloned the Dolly the lamb, the first mammal. So DNA, since every person's DNA is different, it makes us different from each other. We all have different eye color, hair color. All those differences make up to different people. It also tells about history and ancestry. History because let's say you find a skeleton over here, somewhere in North America, and then a skeleton over here in Africa. This one probably was from an earlier time, let's say. If you sequence that DNA and this DNA, and if they were alike, you could have figured out if a group of people here went to Africa. DNA also helps with better crops. I put better in quotes and I put a question mark because scientists, when they do something called genetic modification, they take genes from a certain plant that have certain qualities that they want another plant to have. They take that gene and they put it into the corn. Now, the thing scientists are overlooking is the nutritional quality. When they do that, they take out some of the vitamins or minerals, so then it's not as nutritious. So I hope they can change that and not make it so denutritious. Fun fact, my favorite thing, 99.9 of the DNA in, let's say, meat is the same as someone else. So we're not actually too different, but that 1.1% makes the difference.
So the 1% they use to detect the which DNA is.
Yeah, so it's actually very hard to figure that out because they could be it could have been someone else, but that 0.1%